Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience. We discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, and I've got a great guest, that's going to cover a subject that's very timely and one that I don't think we've ever covered before. Let me tell you about her. Her name is Sandy Anchondo, and she is an interior designer and published author. She also spent some time in corporate life. We may get to that. But Sandy is the founder of Restyle Interiors, specializing in custom home office space design, which we definitely need to talk about today. As a solopreneur, Sandy understands the challenges and blessings of running a business from home. Organization is key in a productive home office, and Sandy is a self-proclaimed neat freak. I am not, so we'll be at odds there. In that particular area, she's obsessed with making the best of whatever space you have available, and I have a 750 square foot house, so maybe we'll dig into that. Sandy, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great having you. You know, we met through a couple of virtual networking programs, and we kind of hit it off. I says, you'd be great for the show, so I'm really glad to have you here. And we're going to talk about home offices because I get the feeling that maybe more than a couple of people are working from home today.
Just a few.
Just a few. Whether it's by choice or reluctantly, they are. But before we get into that, I know that you were in the financial services space. You did technology sales. You were in corporate life before you became this great entrepreneur. Can you give us a little bit of flavor of the journey from that corporate life to what you do now as an interior designer?
Sure. Well, you couldn't get any further apart from what my what my career used to be. So that being said, yes, this is my second career. But I started out, I graduated from college and I wanted to get a good job, and I had a marketing degree and I wanted to make money, and it was like, okay, so I just focused on what I knew best at the time, and I worked my way up in the corporate world, and I ended up with a very, very good, lucrative job in software sales. And this was after years of going up the corporate ladder, as we call it. And what I realized is, so I met my goal. I was making great money. I had all this, I was supposed to be super happy. And then I realized, oh my gosh, the stress was killing me. I was burned out. Took about 18 years for that all to happen. I'm just kind of fast forwarding through. But I mean, there was some great moments. I'm glad I did it. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I just got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore. And sure. I guess we hear that a lot, right? You think you can do this, and it's making you good money and your life is good. Then you realize, oh my gosh, there's got to be more to it. Yeah. So that's kind of why I left guaranteed income and sales commissions and president's clubs and
sure.
Rolex watches and all that kind of stuff, so that I could actually enjoy my life a little bit more and kind of relax.
Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. I think you may have heard that kind of story at least once before.
I've been podcasting and YouTubing, if that's even a verb, for about 5 years now, and that's the first time I've ever heard that story that, somebody, left the stress, of corporate life to to become an entrepreneur. Obviously, I'm being facetious, and of course, staying in the facetious realm, there is absolutely no stress to being an entrepreneur, right?
Oh my gosh! So yeah, how ironic. So you leave one sort of stress for a whole brand new set of stresses. Yeah. But I don't know. Isn't it funny? Yes, it's stressful, but it feels different because you're making your own decisions. You're in charge of your destiny, as they say. Yeah. And so it is different, even though it is stressful, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is stressful and it is very different. The reason I left corporate life is while I was very, very good with the vast majority of the people that reported to me, I really wasn't very good at looking up the org chart and asking how high when they asked me to jump. That was my problem. So now when I have a real issue with the boss, I've got to have a conversation with myself, and that's kind of a funny thing. And fortunately, it's never been on tape. But anyhow, be that as it may, let's get back to your journey. You obviously had a passion for interior design. Yeah, how did I mean? You got a marketing degree. You were in sales. Why interior design? Why was that this incredible wild hair for you?
Yeah, good way of putting it. So before I got my marketing degree, I actually always wanted to grow up and be an interior decorator. That was my when you're a little kid and you have a fantasy of what you love to do. And it all started in our living room in our childhood home, and I used to just move furniture around and tell my mom how I wanted to hang something here and do that. Well, anyways, so when I first went to college, I actually did get a 2-year degree in design, interior
Okay.
design, but it was so long ago, I'm afraid to tell you what year it was because it's going to date me like crazy. But let's just say everything was manual back in those days, and there were, nothing was digital, everything was done by hand.
Mhm.
And so I did learn all the basics of design way, way back. I'm trying to think of a band that might have been, I'm trying to think of music that may have
Frank
been popular
Sinatra?
back then. No,
I just
no.
figured I would start there and we would work our way through.
And work your way up.
Hey, I'm a
Well,
big fan of
anyways,
Frank Sinatra. It's the first thing that came to mind.
yeah, I like his music too. And I like mid-century modern, and he used to have a cool pad out in Palm Springs. When
Yep.
I think of Frank Sinatra, I think of mid-century modern. Isn't that funny?
Yes.
Um, so, yes, very. Uh, so as it be it as it may, so I had this degree, and back then I had no mentor. I didn't have any real direction on what to do with it. How do I get into this business? So ironically, I continued my 4-year education, got the marketing degree. I realized sales came very natural to me, and I just gravitated towards sales. So after a few years doing some marketing type activities, coordinating
Mhm.
and that type of thing, I decided, you know what, the money is in sales, so that's where I'm going to go. So I left that whole dream behind. And then, of course, what happens, Ken, it keeps creeping up on you, right?
Right.
So it took me about 18 years, and that dream creeped back up when I got to a point in my life where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so it was the right time. It was in the early 2000s, and I opened up Restyle Interiors in August of 2004.
And you've been happy ever since. 16 years later,
Yeah, right.
you're on
So what
branding the
happened in
experience.
2000? Yeah, yeah. I was happy, and then I was very sad, and then I became happy.
Yeah, we'll talk about all the economic downturns. Uh, but so you've developed a specific expertise
Yes.
in home offices, and it's interesting because it seems like a vast majority, even before the pandemic happened, it seemed like a lot of office people, especially out here where we live in Orange County, LA County, Southern California. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that drive. I just want to work from home. Let me work from home. And you know what? Some people could do it very well. And others, I've seen, especially from my wife's line of work, sometimes you got to drag people back in. Sometimes they want to come
Yeah.
back in because it wasn't the nirvana that they thought it would be. And, and others, it's like, all right, this discipline thing isn't quite working out. Maybe if we bring you back into a cubicle, this will work. But in the theme of the show, which is partially, having employees that want to come to work, what are some of the what's the phrase that I'm looking for? What are some of the designs, some of the ways that you can work your workplace at home that's going to make you want to be in that space?
Well, that is key. You
Yes,
have to create a space where you want to be, right? That's what
exactly.
happens with people when they first have to work from home. They think it'll just be fun and, oh, but then you got to realize it has to be stimulating. It has to be an environment where you can focus. Those are the key things to working from home successfully. We can all work from home, but you don't want to be, sitting on the edge of your bed or leaning on your headboard with a laptop in your lap and
Yeah.
wondering why can't I focus? Why am I not being able to get anything done?
Mhm.
So the key is to really designate a space. Number one, you got to have a space designated for you. And it doesn't have to be a whole room. It can be the corner of an area of your house, which that's what I'm doing right now.
That's exactly what like I mentioned at the beginning. I live in a 750 square foot house. It's right by the beach, which apparently I can't go to right now until this whole
Oh
thing is
yeah,
over.
the snap
But
killer.
that's a whole nother discussion. But literally, I'm in the corner of my bedroom where I've created kind of a wall space, and I've got my own little cubicle here.
And that's fantastic. That's exactly what we should all be doing. I happen to have an open dining area that is just off of the living room, and the reason why I chose this space for my office is because it has excellent light, and you've got great lighting there. I get excellent light. I have a beautiful view. Here's key number two, tip number two. Don't, if you're in the corner of a room somewhere, please don't make it, where you feel like you're in jail. You got to be able to see something, and hopefully you've got a window that you can glance out of, and it helps us to keep our focus on what we're doing, because we're not so apt to play mind games with ourselves. Oh, I'm just going to step out just for a moment because I don't know what's going on. And is the sun out? Is it raining? I mean, if you have a window there, then even though you've got your workspace all, it's defined. Everything should be there, by the way. Everything that you need should be in that space. Your files, your paperwork. You shouldn't have to be getting up every 5 minutes. That's another tip that I want to tell people. If you know what you need to
Mhm.
do what you do, make sure that your space is set up to handle, and hopefully here's the neat Nick part of me. Hopefully in somewhat of a organized manner. But if that doesn't bother you and you know where your stuff is, Ken, then
Mhm.
hey, I'm not going to say, why is your desk so messy? It all depends on what, how how you work and what makes you be able to
Right.
work
there's
easily.
there's a reason why the camera is pointed a certain way because fortunately, I've got at least one thing right that you mentioned, which is everything is literally almost exactly at an arm's length from where I am. Whether it's files or tape or stapler or even my tablet and my phone and everything else. Uh,
Perfect.
it's definitely not organized because I got stacks of stuff. Yeah, here are invoices that I actually got paid for from like 3 months ago that need to be filed. Uh, but
But
yeah,
you're getting there.
but yes, I'm getting there. But I will say that in this particular space, yeah, it's very, very rare that I have to get up. I actually, this goofy little Fitbit tells me I got to get up every once in a while, but it's not because I need to grab something in order to be able to work.
Right. fantastic. And that's key. So, and you just brought up another real important tip.
That's what I'm here
Every
for.
couple of
I'm
hours,
here to tee it up for you, Sandy. So
thank you, Ken. I don't actually have a Fitbit, but I know every couple of hours I do purposely get up and I do move around, or I'll go outside and take a walk. Man, that is so important. And I
yeah,
probably don't have to tell you why, but we have to get that circulation. We have to get that exercise. We got to give our minds a little bit of a break. You know, when we're working from home, time tends to get away from us. Is that not true? It
yes,
is for me.
yeah, I certainly
Time really gets
experienced
away
that.
from us. If you're in an office, somebody's, coming up to your desk, or it's the lunch hour because everybody's gone and you're the only one sitting there, so oh, I gotta. But when you're at home and yeah, you gotta kind of remind yourself, all right, I'm gonna get up, I gotta stretch, I gotta move, I gotta walk. Or I'm so glad we're both being hydrated
Yes,
well. That's the other thing. You got to have that with you at all
yeah,
times. It's all part of how we can keep our minds sharp, keep us focused on work. Hydration is important, having all your things near you, which check, you got that.
yep.
And being in a comfortable chair. And it looks to me like you have a good ergonomic, yep, you've got the kind of chair where you're not sitting there going, oh, my back. A lot of people, they just pull up whatever chair they happen to
Yeah.
have. If they're incidental home work at home people, they haven't realized yet, egads, where I'm sitting is so important.
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I heard somebody years ago, basically say, make the best of your space. And, in terms of, I have a very inexpensive desk. Yeah, everything that's here except for maybe my tech equipment is pretty, it's not even IKEA. It's probably
It,
it's probably from Zare from like 20 years ago for those that remember Zare. But also what I find is I can configure my area to how I need. Like for instance, I've got a stand for my tablet. Sometimes I've got two computers going. Sometimes I'll literally have this little cubicle setup that I have going on over here down, but I'll be able on the back of the bed have another laptop where I can swing around where I'm doing two things at once, where I'm doing editing on a podcast and I'm doing like a couple emails because I've got to let things load and so forth. Yeah, what are your expert comments on that? Because some people say, don't be in the bedroom and da 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 da, have a separate space, but others will say, you got to make do with what you have.
I believe you have to make do with what you have, especially right now, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we all found ourselves, well, except for you and I, who've always worked from home,
right.
but most people found themselves as the accidental work at home people. And so you do want to make do with what you have. If it just so happens that you can be not in your bedroom, that would be great. But being in your bedroom, off in the corner, just the way you described it, it's not like you're in bed. I mean, you've
Right.
got a totally separate area. It keeps your mind off of, okay, I'm supposed to be in this room only at night when I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
So that's cool. What you've done is perfect. It's a perfect example of working with what you have. And I do believe that when we work from home, I think multitasking isn't as much of a negative as it might be if
Interesting.
we were in an office. And because I feel the same way, it's like if I'm trying to wait for something to upload, or I'm doing something that I just have to wait until it's finished. I want to be able to turn my, pivot
Hmm.
and maybe start working on something else. Because it's just out there in the background. So it's not so much that you're trying to multitask and get your brain all in a
Right.
in a
Acclimated or
frizzle.
yeah.
Yeah, but but at the same time, I think it helps us to know that we're being more cognizant of our time. We're not, when you work from home, it is so difficult at moments to not waste time.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit it, but it's true. I mean, it's very easy to waste time when you're sitting here and you're like, oh, what's on YouTube? Oh, what's going on Facebook?
Yeah.
So as much as we try to keep ourselves focused on our task at hand, um, if you can keep busy, with editing that video in the background instead of all of a sudden squirrel, I'm on YouTube watching, when it makes more sense, right?
Well, it's funny you mentioned squirrel, because well, two things. One, I completely agree with you that it's very easy to fall into. I'm a big Stephen Covey fan, so we'll use his quadrants. It's very easy to fall into quadrant four, meaning doing things that are neither important nor urgent. Because yeah,
Yeah,
you're exactly right. You're on Facebook, for instance, and you're very focused on saying getting back to a client or somebody in your group or something that actually is a quadrant one or two activity, important and
yeah,
urgent or important and not
yep,
urgent, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's the scene from The Getaway with Steve McQueen that's on this next one. Click. It's like, oh, they got all 8 minutes of the scene. Even though I saw it 5 times, I'm going to sit here and watch that. You've got to be very disciplined in doing that. At least, what I've found, which works for me, not all the time, but many times, is to-do lists don't necessarily work for me. They work for some people. But going back to the whole configuration of an office, one of the reasons why I have my tablet and my phone on a stand. In fact, let's see if I can bring this over here without screwing everything up. This is my little contraption. I use this for recording some shows too.
oh,
But it has my tablet and my phone. I've got them both off right now because I'm having the pleasure of speaking with you and I don't want any interruptions. But the tablet does very little, frankly, except has my Google Calendar on it all the time. And so, real quickly, I can click one button and the Google Calendar comes up. And that is, in essence, my to do list. I literally, when I'm very disciplined, will schedule my entire day out to the point of, I'll have time scheduled out for a workout, which is important. Today, I literally, went and did a workout in the living room while something was uploading to YouTube. I will do half-hour tasks and put it in the calendar and say, okay, this is what I'm doing right now. So when I get the Facebook video or I see something really cool on YouTube or something of that nature, I literally, my mind goes back, all right, you've got 24 more minutes on your calendar to do this. Can you watch this stupidity for the next 10 minutes and still get this done? And going back to squirrel, because I had a point there, is one thing that I don't have, which you recommended, and I agree with you for most people, is it's great to have a window. And
yeah,
in this particular corner, yeah, I have a back door where I can get some air, but I really can't see, and there's a window back there that I really can't see. I can't look out at anything from my corner.
yeah. That, you know what? I don't know what the answer is without actually seeing a little bit
Mhm.
more of your room, but that could really help you because it is a way of, I can literally, I'm glancing out right now and I'm like, I'm looking at some trees and and the breeze is blowing and it's like, oh, okay, now I'm back focused with you.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's that mental it's kind of washing away your
Yeah.
stress for a second. Now, some people do that by simply hanging something on the wall that brings that they can relax by. Either it's a picture of the ocean, or it's a photograph of I don't know, someplace in Yosemite, or something that
Yeah.
kind of, when you can look at that image, it makes you, gives you a little bit of a calming moment. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what you could do if you have a wall right opposite you.
Well, great point. One, I think that especially for our audience that has kind of fallen into, hey, I'm a working from home person now because of necessity, and you're like me and you don't have a window, that's not necessarily the worst thing, because for some people it would be very claustrophobic because everybody has a different personality, everybody has a different workflow. But I can tell you, before I moved to Southern California, yeah, I had a dedicated office, a room office where I lived in Naperville, Illinois, and I had a ton of windows. I had a whole triple window in front of me with my desk and so forth, and it wasn't really, this picturesque of a view. It was a view of the next neighborhood and the main street and everything else. But I found myself, looking, oh, what's Fred doing over there? I would find, maybe I got ADHD or something. Who the heck knows? And many times I haven't done it in a while, but I visit my parents that they have a home on Lake Michigan in Wisconsin, and my father has a beautiful office that overlooks Lake Michigan. And when I visit them,
Wow.
I'll use his study to work many times. And I find myself getting distracted. And, oh, the lake, it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's like, oh, I got to go back to work. So, it's not necessarily a negative for some people. For some, it can be very depressing. For me, I find that it actually keeps me a lot more focused, and I literally don't see that squirrel running up the tree going, "Oh wow, that's cool."
Right. Right. You bring up a good point.
Once in a while, I do
Yeah.
that.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. If that's not a problem for you, then that's fantastic. But at the same time, you probably do need something that you can put in that room that will visually give your mind a moment of calm. So if it's just, I know my background is very plain, but I purposely do it just for calls.
Yeah,
Normally I do have other things back there, but as a designer, everything that I have is so easily movable, and
yeah,
I mean, we're big on never keeping everything in the same spot too long anyways.
yeah.
um, so yeah, that's, you bring up a good point. The other thing that windows do, and even if you can't look through your window, I bet you've got some light coming in through that window right now, because
Yeah, I've
having
got
natural light.
Yeah, I've got some natural light coming in to my left. You commented on the good light that I have. That's by design for our
Yeah.
show because I have a couple of lights that I put up. But yes, I've got some natural light there, and there's natural light when I take apart my makeshift cubicle here.
Right. Well, and having that window, and you can open that window, I'm sure, if you want the breeze to
Yeah.
come in. So it's really not, especially in your situation, just having some natural light in that room. And if it doesn't bother you that you don't have, some place to look out, if that's how you like to work, then hey, I am never going to say, but Ken, that's wrong.
Well, how about some of those folks out there? Unfortunately, New York City has gotten hit the worst in our country with this pandemic and has forced a lot of people to work from home. And I know, in Manhattan, there aren't too many, 3 bedroom, 2 bath apartments
Right.
and condos out there, unless, you're you're working for you're working on Wall Street or something. There are a lot of
Right.
people that are making do with less space than I do. for, in their Manhattan apartment. They may only have like a studio, or, some kind of, kitchen arrangement or whatever. What are some recommendations for those folks that have really, really small places and find themselves working, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday in it?
Yeah, I hear you. And believe me, I downsized myself a few years ago, 4 years ago. I used to have my own dedicated office in my 2,700 square foot home, and it had everything. But when I downsized, the first thing I realized is that I don't need two places to eat. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have an eating kitchen. So I took the space that would normally people would think of it as the dining area, which is in this particular setup part of the living room.
Hmm.
A lot of people have that. Even if you're in a studio, usually your living area space, your great room,
Hmm.
consists of like an eating space,
Sure.
your living room space, and then your kitchen is probably just off of that. So one thing that works fantastic in so many different applications. I'm going to say 90% of the people out there. I hope that nobody comes back to she's wrong. She's wrong. If you have a sofa behind if and you don't put your sofa against a wall, if you have your sofa placed perpendicular to a wall,
Hmm.
meaning the back of the sofa is showing is exposed,
Right.
you can put anything behind it. You can put your desk behind your
Hmm.
sofa, you can put a console table that becomes your desk. You can even have a very, very slim,
Sure.
some people don't need a big, big desk area, but
Right.
using the back of your sofa as kind of a partition, meaning you're going to put your desk right up
Right.
against the back of the sofa. It works wonders in almost, like I said, almost any room that has space as a living room slash dining room
Sure.
area. If you've got that much space, if you've got a 12 by 12 room, if you've got an 11 by 12, if you've got a long skinny room, those are even better because
Yeah.
the length of the room, you can kind of cut it in half almost
Right.
with your sofa sticking out. I mean, perpendicular. And then you put a desk or a console table or
Yeah.
a IKEA find or anything up against there, and then that becomes your desk area,
Right. No, that's
if that
great
makes sense.
advice. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Sometimes even without the couch be not being against the wall and not being exposed, because I understand how that kind of creates a partition, if you will,
Yep,
or
a visual.
yeah,
Mhm.
demarcation point. We do
Yes.
it, in because we have a living room in a 750 square foot space. We have kind of a living room, dining room situation, which is one
Yep.
room, but we do that with two different rugs where
Yep.
you could easily walk from our dining space to our living room space, but there's literally looks like it's a demarcation of two
Separate.
different rooms, that this is
We
the
call that
dining area,
anchoring.
and yeah, and this is the living.
Yep. You have anchored your two spaces, visually giving it a break,
Right.
just by using those area rugs. And then if you do have that type of a space and you have a sofa in there and you turn the sofa sideways so that it's not against the wall, you turn it, it could even be floating in the room depending on how large that space is.
Yeah.
Um, that way you've just given yourself a visual barrier. You've given yourself that delineated space.
Yeah.
You've defined an area.
Yeah, so it sounds like I'm doing more things right than wrong from your advice, which is making me feel good. But from a standpoint of doing things right, yeah, I'm very animate that we need to brand the experience for our employees before we could even brand the experience for our customers. So from that standpoint, with so many of our employees working from home, from a design standpoint, or maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe a technical or so, are the things that a business can give an employee that's other than just the obvious, a laptop, that will make working from home easier from a design standpoint? Do you have any insight or expertise on that?
So we're talking about somebody who works for a corporation outside
Right.
of their home, but they're working from home. And what can they have in their house that helps them to connect? Uh,
Like for instance, from a design standpoint, and I know that every business is strapped today, or most businesses. Yeah, you send people to work from home. I mean, not every business can just say, "Hey, we're going to send an ergonomic chair with you." Uh,
right.
but but is there some equipment? Is there something that say, hey, since you're going to be working from home, and we were concerned about your health or your comfort, we're going to give you, say, like a cushion, like my fat ass has a cushion on this comfortable chair right now, or lighting, or maybe a stand. Is there something that a business, from a design standpoint, to make their employees' home office more functional, more comfortable, that they may want to look at providing to their employees that work from home?
Yes. I would say number one, a really a good task light, a, a light for the desk that is LED, that is positioned so that the light is coming down on the desk area.
Hmm.
A lot of people just think, oh, I'll just throw a lamp here and I'll be fine. And then, they get eye strain, or they don't have good
Yeah.
lighting, and they're squinting. Yeah. So lighting is key. So if the office can supply their work at home people with a good task lamp, that an LED task lamp. The other thing I think that maybe businesses could do, we all find, I know I do, I struggle with plugging in all of my devices.
Hmm.
I've got to have, a power strip, or I've got to have something so that I can have my whatever, your cell phone is charging at
Right.
the same time that your laptop, whatever. There are some excellent and if they're working from a laptop, I hope that they can get an external monitor. I don't know how you feel about that. For me, having an external monitor in addition to my laptop screen is everything. Do you use that? Any of the?
I could see the benefit of that, and a lot of people that I know that do have a home office have something like that. My alternative, because my laptop is actually an oversized laptop, so I've got a pretty big screen, is I
Decent screen.
actually have an adjustable stand that I bought for the
I was just
laptop.
about to
Yeah,
say that.
yeah,
The adjustable stand can, yes, because you want to be, yeah. Do I have to even talk about that? We all want our screen level to be at
right,
the right height for us. So having
yeah,
an adjustable stand, having really good lighting, doesn't have to be expensive, but an LED task lamp that's going to shine light down on your work surface. And then, of course, you do have to have a comfortable chair. Not that they have to purchase the chair,
right,
but just making sure that if it is a wood chair, let's say, you have to have a cushion on that chair. There's just
yeah.
no, you don't want to be sitting on something that is torture after 2 hours,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you don't want to feel like you've just sat at the LA Coliseum for a 4 hour overtime USC game. Um, for those on the East Coast and Midwest, I'll tell you, LA Coliseum not comfortable. Anyhow,
At
be
all.
be that as it may, I have learned a ton from you. I have also had a lot of my thoughts validated, which is just as important. Last question that I have for you is for folks out there that could use a little or even a lot of help with their home office and tap into your expertise. How best can they find you?
Well, the easiest way to find me is on my website. And all of my links are there. It's Restyle Interiors, RESTYLE, interiors.net. And then if anybody's interested in a quick download for home office tips, I do have that available too, and you can grab that at yourhighprofitofficedesign.com. And that's just a freebie download, and it'll kind of go through all the things that we talked about today and a few more.
Terrific, terrific. Well, I'm definitely going to go and grab that sucker after we're done here, because I want those extra 2 or 3 tips that we didn't talk about today to make my little space even better. But Sandy, thank you so much for being on the show. I had so much fun speaking with you, and I'm sure my audience, our audience, got a lot of great tips as well.
Thank you, Ken.
Pleasure having you, and thank all of you that joined us on Branding the Experience. And as always, here's hoping that you're branding the experience at a very high level for all those you serve. Take care. Thank you for watching Branding the Experience. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking for a speaker on branding the experience, on workplace culture, or on business strategy, I have a number of different options for you, and my approach is always to entertain first, engage second, and educate third. It's a formula that leaves my audience not only laughing and enjoying, but also learning. So if you want a great speaker on branding, culture building, or strategy, I'd like to hear from you. Simply send me an email at kbator, BATOR, at btcinc.net, or to learn more about the presentations that I've done that have been successful in the past, go to www.btcinc.net.